Taoiseach, the impact of COVID-19 on the delivery of health services in this state, as we all know, has been catastrophic. We know that waiting lists across nearly all medical specialities have increased significantly, and that it will be years before we can finally determine the real magnitude of the crisis that has been created in non-COVID related areas like cancer care, coronary care and paediatric care. But it also needs to be pointed out that it was wrong of this government to decide to close down cancer services during the pandemic and while the restrictions were in place. Many experts, medical experts, did ask for the services to remain open, and they should have had. But there is another crisis in the making well before COVID was even heard of, a crisis that cannot and should not be cloaked by a focus on COVID-19. I am referring to the scandal that is the delivery of the National Children's Hospital project. Taoiseach, this project was originally budgeted as costing 650 million. It then escalated to 1.74 billion, with the most recent estimates now reported to be in excess of 2 billion. Then in February, the Chief Executive of the National Paediatric Hospital Development Board told the Public Accounts Committee that the project is not likely to be fully operational until 2024. This is a full 2 years after the original contractual end point of 2022. We were also told in February that there are now more than 700 claims lodged by various contractors against the project, with the amount associated with those thought to be in excess of 300 million. This project has become a financial chaotic albatross and a health nightmare. It will inevitably drain vital and much needed resources away from other areas of healthcare. How could it not, given the scale of the monies involved? So it is in fact then, it is a fact that this project will be, at the very least, it will end up as being 1 million over budget before a sick child is even seen. And putting that into context in terms of what €1 billion can do in health, I was informed through a recent parliamentary question that the total cost of implementing the entire national cancer strategy between now and 2026 would be in the region of 840 million. I also know that the total net budget for adult and children's palliative care last year was just over 100 million, and that still leaves us with 60 million that could be utilised. What is infuriating is that you and your party and the previous government had 2 opportunities to call a halt to this.
Thank you, Deputy.
In March 2017 and March 2019, the Rural Independent Group brought this to your attention and called for a radical assessment of this project.
Taoiseach.
First of all, I want to say to the Deputy that I think the health service has performed heroically during COVID-19, both in dealing with the impact of the disease, and I think the frontline workers, right through to the administrators and senior management, I think have done have worked very, very hard, night and day, to protect the people of this country. And no services were restricted or closed down without the most serious of consideration being given to the well-being of patients and the well-being. And cancer services were not closed down in their entirety, even during the first phase. They weren't closed down. But a whole range of issues did happen, of course, and in terms of screening programs and so on. But in terms of, and that has caused problems and challenges. And there will be significant pressure on the health services now in terms of the restoration of services. And in fact, hospitals right now are busier than even the highest levels in 2019. In a way, that's a good thing in terms of people are now coming back, and we do have to have a very substantial programme to deal with delayed diagnosis, to make sure that we can accelerate programmes of intervention, diagnostics, and so forth. And that's something that the Department of Health and the Minister for Health and the HSE are very focused on, and we've allocated significant funding specifically for the restoration of cancer services in the context of COVID-19 and services more generally. Now, in relation to the National Children's Hospital, it is well known, and when you said we had an opportunity, in 2017 we were not in government. I wasn't in government 2017 or 2019. But you need to define what you mean by a radical was the phrase reappraisal, or a radical approach to this. You need to spell out what you mean. Because I'm not clear in terms of what you mean. Do you mean to stop the project in its entirety? Is that what you mean? That's all done, Deputy. The site was chosen a long time ago, independently. So the issue now is, obviously, the objective is to build a first-class paediatric hospital for the children of this country and for future generations. There have been challenges on the site, and that's no secret now. Very significant challenges, and there have been significant issues, and the board of the hospital, the Paediatric Hospital Development Board, is undertaking an ongoing review of the project, is engaging with the Minister for Health, the Department of Health, as government is continuing to keep this under review, and there remain challenges there, and the relationships have been challenging as well. Between contractors and the Paediatric Hospital Development Board, and we're dealing with this incrementally and on an ongoing basis. But there's no magic wand here that we can wave now at this stage in relation to this development or to this project. But we're going to stoically and deal with this on a proper basis on behalf of the citizens of the country.
Deputy Carol Nolan.
Good, Taoiseach, I thank you for your response, but I do want to point out, and certainly our healthcare staff were commendable and did a fantastic job, and it's not of their making that we have this chaos. But I do also want to point out to you that Professor Fitzgerald, or Professor O'Reilly rather, who's an expert in cancer care, did point out that we're going to be seeing higher numbers of cancer patients for the next decade, because services that should have been operational and screening services were not operational, and unfortunately we will have delayed diagnosis. But what I want to point out to you also is that when I called for a radical reassessment, what I'm talking about is a very reasonable proposal to just carry out an impact assessment and a re-evaluation of the healthcare priorities and objectives, because it's unfair that we're going to have hundreds and hundreds of millions taken out of healthcare, and we have children languishing on hospital waiting lists. Children with scoliosis that need treatment, children that need audiology services, children that need speech and language. It's those children that are suffering.
All right, thank you very much, Deputy. Taoiseach, to conclude, please.
But I appreciate the Deputy's concerns. By the way, I know Professor Riley, he's an exceptional oncologist, if it's the same Professor Riley we are talking about. And COVID has had this impact. It's not governments. Governments don't want to close down services willy-nilly. There's no agenda. We've allocated more resources to the health services in 2021 than ever before. Historic figures allocated to health. The Winter Initiative Plan of 600 million alone, which we gave in advance to HSE in October, was critical to facilitating the health service throughout the Christmas period, and particularly through the third wave. And that intervention was perhaps one of the most effective proactive interventions in quite a while. Didn't get much attention because of the third wave and all that happened subsequently. But I'm still at a loss as to what you are saying in terms of the Children's Hospital about the radical reappraisement. We can't pull hundreds of millions out of that now. I mean, the topping out has happened and so forth. So you need to make a call here. What are you actually recommending to government? Are you saying we should pull the project? Are you saying we should reduce the scale of the project? I'm unclear.
The time is up now anyway, so
I don't know what that means.
Thank you.